The tall grass swayed gently in the wind, whispering a quiet song of the open field. The sunlight filtered through the blades, casting long, fragile shadows, but beneath it all, something felt wrong. There, in the midst of the endless green, lay a small dog with a coat of browns and whites, motionless, yet not lifeless. Its body lay close to a larger figure, a German shepherd, whose breaths came shallow and labored, its eyes dim with exhaustion and confusion. The shepherd's leg, clearly injured, rested at an awkward angle, a visible testament to whatever hardship it had endured. The smaller dog, despite the heavy silence of the field, refused to leave. Its head was low, eyes wide and watchful, occasionally nudging its companion's face with its nose. A soft whine escaped its throat, as though speaking a language the shepherd could no longer understand. There was no frantic energy, no frantic search for help, just the steady, unwavering attention that only one who is truly devoted could offer. The little dog's actions were slow, deliberate. Each touch meant to comfort, to rouse its friend from the haze of pain. The shepherd's head shifted slightly, but it didn't rise. The dog's body trembled with the effort of movement, each breath coming slower than the last. And still the smaller dog remained there, its focus absolute. It did not wander, did not leave the side of its friend even for a moment. Its loyalty was its only language, soft and simple. The wind stirred the grass around them, but no movement disturbed the bond they shared. A distant bird call echoed faintly through the field, but the only sound that mattered was the rhythm of the shepherd's breath and the soft murmurs of the smaller dog as it nudged its companion again. The field stretched on in silence, as if the world itself had slowed, waiting for something. The injured shepherd lay there, a quiet figure of endurance, while the little dog remained beside it, a silent sentinel. As the moments passed, a soft, steady sound began to rise in the distance. Footsteps, slow but deliberate, approaching from beyond the horizon. The small dog's ears pricked, its head lifted slightly. Eyes scanning the direction of the sound. The tail, motionless in the grass, remained still, a sentinel as much as the dog itself. It didn't move closer, nor did it move away. The dog remained unwavering in its post, its gaze never straying from the shepherd, who lay waiting for whatever the moment would bring. The sound of the steps grew louder, and with it, a faint stirring of air. The small dog did not turn to look. It only focused on its companion, on the life that lay beside it. Its devotion was unshakable. In this moment, it had no need to understand why the shepherd was injured or why it was so still. The bond they shared had no need for words, no need for explanations. It was simple, raw, an expression of loyalty in its purest form. The shepherd's body shifted slightly, a small motion that spoke more than any words could. Its breath grew a little deeper, though the effort was clear in its slow, deliberate exhale. The small dog did not move away. It remained where it was, close to its friend, keeping watch, keeping vigil. Even as the distance between them and the approaching footsteps narrowed, it did not look up, did not seek out help. Its world was here, in this stillness, beside its friend. The air remained heavy, thick with a quiet tension. Something was coming, but the little dog did not falter. It stayed by the shepherd's side, the air between them thick with the bond they shared, a bond that neither time nor injury could weaken. And as the footsteps grew nearer, the quiet between them remained unbroken, holding the stillness of a friendship that did not need words to speak its truth. Hours stretched on, their passing marked only by the changing quality of the light. The sun, now sinking low in the sky, painted the landscape in a golden hue that seemed to soften the edges of the world. The warmth of the day hung thick in the air, but for the little dog, time seemed to slow, its focus never wavering from the shepherd beside it. The injured dog's breathing had grown more labored, each exhale shallow, as if each breath took more effort than the last. Its eyes, once sharp, now appeared slightly glazed, distant, as if it were fading in and out of awareness. Yet the smaller dog remained, a constant, unyielding presence. It did not fidget or show signs of distress, even as the sun's rays beat down on the pair. The stillness was heavy, profound, a quiet promise that time, as long as it was measured in minutes or hours, had no meaning here. The little dog's head tilted slightly, a soft sniff to the air, as though it was trying to gauge the situation, though nothing had changed. The connection between them was palpable, more felt than seen, like the rhythm of their breathing in tandem. Every so often the small dog would lean forward, its tiny tongue gently brushing the shepherd's face, a soft, almost imperceptible gesture of affection. The little dog's pale form, stark against the dark coat of the shepherd, moved with tenderness, as if trying to offer comfort where it could. The large dog's limp leg, still bent awkwardly beneath its body, was a silent reminder of whatever had brought them to this place. No amount of affection could heal the injury, and yet the little dog continued, its movements small but deliberate, nudging the shepherd's leg softly as if to reassure its friend that it wasn't alone. The hours wore on. The warm breeze began to carry the scent of the earth, the dry grass beneath them shifting with every gust. Yet the bond between them remained unbroken, their world narrowing to the space they occupied together in the tall grass. The little dog, undeterred by the passage of time or the injury that seemed to drain the life from its companion, was a quiet sentinel, watching, waiting, and keeping its vigil without hesitation. Then, from the edge of the field, a shadow broke the stillness. A figure, a human, approached slowly, the soft crunch of footsteps on the dry earth the only indication of their presence. The little dog's ears twitched, but it did not move. It did not retreat or grow anxious. Its gaze, sharp and steady, remained on the shepherd, unwavering in its devotion. The human came closer, their worn clothes brushing against the grass, but the dog didn't flinch. It only watched, its posture calm and resolute, as if there was no fear in its heart, only a quiet understanding of what was needed. The human crouched down beside them, their voice low and gentle, words spoken more to the air than to the dog. They offered no hurried movement, no attempt to rush in and fix the situation. There was only a quiet presence, a moment of shared understanding that passed between them and the little dog. The small creature's gaze flickered for a second, perhaps recognizing the quiet intent of the person, but it did not leave the shepherd's side. It shifted, slightly, just enough to create space, but not enough to move away completely. It was an offering, a sign of trust, but the loyalty it held was unshakable. It would not leave its friend. As the light continued to fade and the sun dipped lower in the sky, the world around them seemed to slow even further. The human remained still, observing without intervening, understanding without words. The little dog, still steadfast and calm, sat beside the shepherd, refusing to leave. Their bond, unspoken and deep, carried the weight of the moment, and as the shadows grew longer, there was no sound but the soft breaths of the injured dog and the rustling of the grass in the wind. The world around them felt distant, unimportant, compared to the quiet connection between these two souls. The dog's breathing had grown so soft, so faint that at times it was nearly impossible to hear. The rise and fall of its chest was barely perceptible, the rhythm of its life now measured in the smallest of movements. The little dog, still by its side, glanced up once, its gaze shifting briefly to the human who had approached, as if silently waiting for the next move. Its tail lay flat against the earth, unmoving, a quiet reflection of the stillness that had descended on the field. In this moment, the world seemed to pause, as if holding its breath, waiting for something to change, but nothing did. The human moved closer, their touch gentle as it landed softly on the injured shepherd's side. A low whine escaped from the larger dog, a faint protest, but it did not pull away. Its eyes, half closed, stayed open just enough to capture the world around it, struggling to remain focused, to hold on. There was a quiet power in its gaze, a silent understanding that, even in its state of exhaustion and pain, it wasn't alone. The little dog, sensing the need for closeness, inched forward, curling its small body beside the shepherd's head. It offered its warmth, its comfort, in a way only animals could, without a single word spoken, but with all the reassurance the injured dog needed. The shepherd exhaled softly, a gentle sigh that carried with it the weight of everything unspoken. It was the smallest of acknowledgments, a quiet recognition of the presence of the little dog. Despite the overwhelming pain, the fear of what might come, the bond between them had not faltered. It was an unbroken connection, forged through shared time and understanding, and in this moment, nothing else mattered. The human, observing from a few feet away, understood the delicacy of the situation. They remained still, making no attempt to rush in with hasty action. There was no need for urgency, not now. The small dog was not afraid, not anxious, just steadfast in its commitment to stay. The animal's calm, its unwavering loyalty, was a simple but profound declaration of its bond. There were no frenzied attempts to comfort, no desperate gestures. The dog was simply waiting, staying by its friend's side, offering the kind of companionship that transcended words. As the light continued to fade, the human's voice broke the silence, but it was soft, almost too soft for the moment to carry much weight. "Just a little longer. We'll get you help soon," they whispered, more to themselves than to the dogs. The small dog, its eyes still locked on the shepherd, gave no indication that it had heard the words. It didn't need to. The promise of help, of change, was not important to it. What mattered was the quiet understanding that, even in this fragile moment, it would not leave its friend's side. The bond they shared needed no reassurances, no spoken words. It was simple and pure, steady in its silence. The human, still observing from a distance, felt the stillness deepen around them. It was a strange peace, a bittersweet one. The air, growing cooler as the night approached, seemed to embrace the two dogs, the human, and the quiet world that surrounded them. There was no rush, no hurry. The moment, heavy with emotion, lingered as the sky above darkened, the first stars faintly twinkling in the evening light. In that quiet field, with the injured shepherd and the loyal little dog by its side, nothing else mattered. Only the silence of their bond, their unspoken conversation, their shared understanding of what it meant to be there for one another. The stillness that had enveloped the field seemed to stretch out forever, a heavy silence that hung in the air like an unspoken promise. The late afternoon light, soft and golden, bathed the two dogs in warmth. But it felt as if the world around them had frozen, holding its breath. Then, almost imperceptibly, the silence was broken by a faint, subtle movement. The shepherd's paw twitched, a tiny shift that would have been easy to miss if one weren't paying close attention. But the human, with eyes keen from hours of quiet observation, caught it immediately. The injured dog's head lifted, just the smallest fraction, its eyes barely opening wider. It wasn't much, a tremor of motion against the stillness, but in that moment it was enough to stir something deep inside the human's chest, a quiet spark of hope. The little dog, its eyes already wide and attentive, responded without hesitation. It leaned in, its tiny body pressing closer to its companion, and licked the shepherd's ear, a soft, comforting gesture. There was no urgency in its movements, just a slow, deliberate tenderness that spoke volumes. The smaller dog's presence, always constant, was a steadying force, a reminder of the bond they shared. It was a quiet reassurance, a reminder that they were not alone. The air was thick with the weight of the moment. The shepherd's breathing was still labored, its legs trembling from the effort of even the smallest movements. But something shifted inside the injured dog. Slowly, almost painfully, it began to shift its weight, trying to rise. The human's heart quickened, their body tensing in response to the unexpected movement. But they remained still. The world felt suspended in time, every breath drawn with a careful deliberation, as if the very act of breathing might break the fragile miracle unfolding before them. The shepherd let out a soft growl, not of pain, but of acknowledgement. It was as if the dog were telling the world, "I am trying," the growl a faint expression of its effort. The little dog did not move away. It stayed close, never faltering, as it had been all along. Every step the shepherd made, the smaller dog moved with it, keeping pace, its every movement a gentle reminder that it was there, a constant companion in the quiet struggle. There was no hurry, no frantic desire to rush through the moment, just the slow, steady rhythm of two animals moving together in perfect synchrony. The human's voice, soft and steady, barely more than a whisper, murmured words of encouragement. "You're doing great, girl," they said, the words meant for the shepherd, but meant for the smaller dog as well. It was a reassurance that was less about instruction and more about connection, a reminder that, despite the overwhelming quiet, they weren't alone in this moment. The human's voice carried warmth, not force, as if their compassion could be felt by the dogs, if only in the slightest way. And then, as if the weight of the world had somehow shifted, the shepherd, with the help of the little dog, slowly rose to its feet. The tremor in its limbs was evident. Each movement an act of pure will, but it stood. There was something deeply powerful in that moment, something that transcended the simple act of rising. It was an act of defiance against the overwhelming exhaustion, an unspoken determination to not surrender, to not give up. The shepherd took a hesitant step forward. Its legs wobbled, the effort visible in every part of its body. But it was moving, slowly but surely, one trembling step at a time. The little dog, always steady, always by its side, moved along with it, keeping close, its body nearly in step with the larger dog. There was no hesitation in the smaller dog's movements. It was as if it understood the shepherd's struggle, as if it knew that its role was not to leave, not to let its friend fall. The bond between them was palpable, silent but undeniable. The shepherd leaned against the smaller dog for support, its larger body seeking the smaller form for balance, for a moment of steadiness. In that moment, the field, once silent and still, seemed to fill with the faintest whisper of survival. It was as if the world had come alive again, if only for a heartbeat. The human watched, unmoving, as the two dogs moved together, a living testament to the power of companionship. It was a quiet miracle, unfolding in real time, a miracle not born from human intervention, but from the quiet strength and devotion of two creatures who had found each other in this desolate place and had chosen not to let go. The smaller dog led the way, its steps steady and confident, guiding its larger companion through the quiet wilderness. The shepherd followed, still hesitant, still unsteady, but moving forward. The world around them felt distant, as if it existed in another time or space, but here, in this small patch of earth, everything was focused on the two of them. The field stretched on, empty and wide, but the presence of these two animals, bound by loyalty and quiet strength, filled the air with something indescribable. The human's gaze followed them as they moved, a sense of awe filling their chest. Each step the shepherd took, each movement it made, was a testament to its resilience, to its will to survive. And beside it, always there, was the little dog, its small form a symbol of unwavering devotion. There was no rush now, no urgency. Only the quiet rhythm of two animals walking side by side through the wilderness, finding their way step by uncertain step. For a brief moment it seemed as though the world had forgotten the weight of pain and struggle. The shepherd was not just walking, it was surviving, and the little dog, its constant companion, was not just there out of duty, but out of a deep, unspoken love that needed no words to be understood. Together they moved forward, slowly but steadily, the human standing in the distance, a quiet witness to their strength, and as the light from the setting sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the field, the two dogs continued their journey. The shepherd's head remained low, but it walked with more purpose now, more intent. The little dog's pace was steady, its eyes still sharp, watching the world around them. There was no fear in its steps, no uncertainty. It was leading, guiding, a quiet protector, its every movement a reassurance. The world had slowed, but there was no hurry. There was only this moment, this small, miraculous act of survival unfolding before them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the two animals continued walking together, side by side. The human stood quietly behind them, the final rays of light softening the edges of the day. The distant sound of wind stirred the grass, and the first stars began to appear in the sky, silent witnesses to the journey of the shepherd and the little dog, a journey that, though uncertain, was no longer one of isolation, but of hope. The sun, now sinking lower in the sky, cast long shadows across the field, the soft hues of orange and pink spreading like watercolor across the canvas of the sky. The air, once warm and heavy with the weight of the day, began to cool, and the wind, gentle and steady, carried with it the scents of earth and grass. The field, once so vast and empty, now seemed to shrink, the edge of the trees drawing near, marking the boundary between the open space and the dense forest beyond. The injured shepherd and its unwavering companion moved slowly. Side by side, their pace deliberate, measured. The larger dog's limp was still evident, the way its body shifted with each step, the effort visible in the trembling of its legs. But there was something else now, something different. The shepherd, though clearly still struggling, had taken those first steps on its own, without the constant assistance it had once needed. It was no longer fully dependent on the little dog, though the bond between them remained as strong as ever. The small dog, with its unwavering presence, had walked beside it, never moving too far ahead, never looking back, always within arm's reach, its tail held low but steady, like a quiet flag of hope. The shepherd's eyes were focused forward. Its head held slightly lower than usual, but it was moving, the ground beneath its paws firm and real. There was no hurry. The slow steps they took were deliberate, as though the world around them had slowed to match their rhythm. It was a quiet, tentative progress, the kind that didn't demand attention but needed none. The little dog stayed close, its movements calm and certain, never rushing ahead, always ready to provide the steadying presence that had made all the difference in the shepherd's journey. The human, standing some distance away, watched the pair move toward the tree line, their eyes lingering on them for just a moment longer than necessary. The scene was peaceful, almost serene, yet the weight of the moment was not lost. The shepherd's journey had been long, its struggle evident in every step, but now there was a quiet sense of resolution. The bond between the two animals, though unspoken, was clear, a loyalty that needed no words, a companionship that no injury or exhaustion could break. The human exhaled softly, a breath that was almost imperceptible, and in that breath there was a sense of relief. It wasn't a loud, sweeping relief, but a quiet understanding that the hardest part had passed. There was no need for more action, no more urgency. The dogs had found their way, and the human, though still present, understood that their role was no longer to intervene. They had done what they could, but the rest was for the dogs to handle on their own. The journey wasn't over, but it had taken a new direction, and the human had to accept that, just as they had accepted the quietness of the moment. As the two dogs reached the edge of the field, the shepherd's limp was still present, but the little dog had not wavered in its support. The field, once vast and daunting, now seemed smaller, more intimate, as if it, too, had recognized the significance of what was happening. The trees at the edge of the field were closer now, their branches swaying gently in the wind, offering shelter, a new beginning, a place of rest. For a moment there was no sound, except for the soft rustling of the grass beneath their feet, the whisper of the wind in the leaves. The air seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the dogs to cross the threshold to step into the next chapter of their journey. The little dog, moving just ahead of the shepherd, turned its head slightly, as if making sure its friend was still behind it, still following. There was no rush now, no panic. There was only the quiet strength of two animals, bound by something far deeper than simple survival. And then, with a slight shift in the shepherd's weight, the two animals reached the tree line. The first step into the shadows of the forest marked the end of the field, but it was also a new beginning, a fresh chapter in their journey. The little dog, its eyes calm and steady, moved confidently into the forest, the shepherd following closely behind. Its limp less pronounced now, though still there. The two of them, side by side, disappeared into the growing dusk, their silhouettes blending with the trees. The human stood still, watching the last of the sunlight fade from the sky, watching the two animals move deeper into the forest, a quiet, unspoken farewell passing between them. There was no need for words, no need for a dramatic gesture. The moment had passed, and with it, the weight of uncertainty had lifted. The shepherd and its loyal companion were moving forward, together as they always had, and in that quiet movement there was everything that needed to be said. The human exhaled once more, a soft, almost imperceptible sigh, and turned away, knowing that the dogs would be all right. There was no need for more than what had already been given. The journey they had started together was far from over, but in that quiet moment, as the sun sank below the horizon, there was a sense of peace. The wind blew softly through the grass, and the last traces of light disappeared, leaving only the sound of the world settling into night. The journey had been long, but it was not yet finished, and for the shepherd and the little dog, there was still more to come.